Gone are the days where you have 40 children in a classroom and you have a 40-minute interactive session. Now the format is already changing, and in fact, all our classrooms, wherever we have online classes today, 2020 is the format. So we have a 20-minute class and 20 children maximum in a class, and that too with two teachers. You definitely cannot run a 100-meter dash the way you would run a marathon. So it's not possible. So you need to change yourself to suit the requirement of the current scenario and the game.
Mhm.
So when it comes to playing the online game for the teacher, I think there are a couple of things which the teachers will have to first of all unlearn.
Yeah.
Unlearning is the first thing, then comes relearning, and then comes learning, continuing learning. For 50 long years, we have understood what is our issue and what is not our issue. Our issue is not about thought process. Our issue is not about bringing the best practices from the world and embracing them. No, our issue is execution, implementation.
Welcome to Mentor Chat, where we bring you advice from mentors who we think are experts and credible in their respective fields. Today, we are going to talk about education, education systems, and teaching in India, and how to become leader in these fields.
Are you guys excited to see me back? I did miss the last couple of episodes, but finally today, when I heard who the guest was, I decided that I should definitely take out time and attend this podcast. The guest today has spoken in front of more than 50,000 people across 4 continents and is ranked in the top 1% of a group of 300 leading professional speakers globally. He has delivered more than 9,000 presentations to audiences of all sizes, sharing great strategies on leadership, the motivation for youth, and communication in education. He has a highly acclaimed book, Right Way Leader Pocketbook, and is taking the youth by storm and is becoming a staple of the people. As a leader, he is serving as the CEO of Jain Group of Institutions, and he is a REX Karmavir Global Education Change Champion Fellow 2019 and was ranked 7 in Education World's ranking of 33 young rising stars of Indian education in March 2017. Now, he has also spoken in a TEDx platform, and if I keep on introducing him, then we will have to do a part 2 for interviewing him. So let's, without further ado, welcome the guest for today, Dr. Chandrasekhar DP, also fondly known as CSK or Chandra. Welcome, Chandra.
Thank you, Atharva, and thank you, Vivaswan, for that warm introduction. And as excited as you are, I am also equally excited to be a part of this video and this recording with you. Thank you for having me.
So, as Warren Buffett once said, that he would like to be remembered not as an investor, not as a philanthropist, but as a teacher. Similarly, Richard Feynman, a great physicist and a very a very acclaimed teacher, once said that if you want to learn something, teach it to someone else, so that you have a core understanding of what you are actually learning and teaching. So, as we have seen, teaching is a very important aspect of our life, whether it is a parent teaching his child, or whether it is a student helping his classmate just a day before the exam. So teaching is an important part in every person's life. So I know, Chandra, that you always like to begin with the why. So I want to ask you, what is the reason? What uh, what do you think about the education system, and why is it important, the teaching and the education, not from the student's perspective, but from the teacher's point of the view and the society's point of view?
Okay, so very interesting point to begin with, and I'm glad that you remember that I always want to start with why. So let me start with a line, a statement actually. Education is not information, but education is transformation. Now, that's my belief also, and that is the reason I've spent nearly 2 decades in education. Why am I saying education is not about information, but it is about transformation? Is because if you look at it today, thing which is put on a premium. Today, information is available at a click of a button, and we don't really need to wait for somebody to tell us something because everything is available on the internet. Thanks to Google or any other search engine, you can actually find it in minutes or less than that. So, with that kind of a prelude, I want to move into answering this question as to what is the relevance and importance of education. In my opinion, education is that one magic trick or one magic formula which anybody embraces it in their life, it transforms them. Now, let's take an example of people and take that magical embrace. Now, say Dr. Ambedkar. We all know the man for the kind of contribution he has provided for all of us when it comes to the Indian Constitution. Now, how did this happen? It happened because he went into that deep research, that deep diving, and he must have read and researched a lot of books, lot of resources. Now, what is happening? Is it only information that it is all assimilated together and is put into this particular book called the Indian Constitution and we are using it? No. When he went into that research, when he went into that kind of a deep dive, something inside of him changed, added to the experiences which he had already undergone. For example, when he was in school, we all know the story that he was not allowed to drink water from the same tap. So those experiences, coupled with the research and the deep dive, brought in a transformation, and he visualized something which said, this is not the country I want my countrymen to live. I want my countrymen to live in a better, forward looking, progressive nation. And thereby, we have constitution as a consequence. Now look at the whole chain of education becoming the transforming tool in his mind and then bringing out the reality. Now that's why education is important. Now we don't have to mistake here and say, oh, everybody who studies will not become Ambedkar. So why should we study? Education is not about creating a sacrosanct document like constitution, but education is required for you to be a better version of yourself. Awareness creates attitude, and that attitude brings in behavioral change, and that behavioral change is what is represented and respected in the community as a transformed human being. In all these perspectives, we need education, and that is why education is very, very important, and it's a great equalizer for any individual coming from any background. That's my answer.
Interesting. So before we move any further, I would just like to explain the flow of this podcast for the benefit of the audience.
Sure.
First, we are going to talk about systems, education systems in India, current and the future. Then we will move on to teaching techniques, after which we would proceed to edupreneurship, and then we'll venture into leadership. So considering the time, we will put this episode in parts. So probably we'll have edupreneurship and leadership in another part.
Okay.
So to begin with the questions, what are your thoughts, Dr. Chandra, about the current education system in India, and what are the 3 things that we have which are really good and we should keep following them in years to come, and what are the 3 shortfalls that we should improve upon and try to learn from probably some other countries?
Right. So quite a elaborate question. I'll try to keep it as concise as possible in my answer. Now, the first thing about Indian education system and what are the three things which are really, really working for us in Indian education system, the current situation, and also what are the things which needs to maybe change or refine going forward. So, talking about the current Indian education system, well, I finally want to say that it's a work in progress. When I say work in progress, I'm not saying that we have hit a destination and the work is not over. We are evolving and we need to evolve rightfully. The reason is things around us, situations around us, and environment around us is fast changing. Now, just to take a statistics, information which I spoke about a while earlier, if you look at the pace at which the information is doubling, every 5 years information was doubling just in the year 2015. So that means in the 2015, when people wanted to measure the amount of information available, they said by 2020 information will double. But you see in 2020, if you come here and see what is the pace at which this information is doubling, it is doubling in less than 3 years, which means the pace has already increased. Now, is it possible for the education system to kind of wrap everything into books and provide the students in schools, colleges, or universities? Not at all. But then there is a separate hack. There is a need of a separate hack to engulf this space. That's why I say education in India is work in progress. Now, some people may have different opinions about no, it's rote learning. It is not going to help. Children are just cramming up things and presenting it in the exams, and they're trying to pass over the exams by just reproducing the answers. That's not what education is. While I agree to all of them, but I also agree that some of the information, some of the ways and the methods we follow in schools and colleges are absolutely necessary. Now, the famous quotation which you keep hearing, or the line, one liner from youth today is, I am studying trigonometry. Where am I going to use that in my life? Right? Why should I rule? I mean, Bollywood has already done it, and we keep taking pride in saying, yeah, 99% of the things which we have learned in our schools, our colleges are not used by us. Now, I will say, only when you started learning, you realize that you are not going to use it, right? Because today, as we speak, you know of 1 million things, if not less, which you have no clue about. You don't know how it works. And what happens? You try to not venture into those territories. You say, that is not my cup of tea, and you try to distance yourself. Now imagine if you keep distancing yourself from every concept on this planet, then what is the real worth of your life? That's what I would like to say. Now, coming to your question, what are the three things which are really, really good in Indian education system? I think the first thing is the respect and the reverence we have for our teachers. This is not something which any book or any board can give you. The culture of India is giving that almost in every individual's DNA. So whether you like your teacher or you don't like your teacher, that's a different thing. But the very fact that teacher creates respect in your mind is the one thing which is unique to Indian education. And in fact, India is a leader in that context in bringing that reverence and respect among the global community for the teachers. Nalanda, Takshashila, all these universities are examples. The second thing which is really, really good in Indian education system is the clarity of freedom. Every student is free to explore his or her interest. The whole culture of Indian education system and the spine on which the Indian education system stands today is providing opportunities for learners to explore new paradigms. Specialization is important and it is more Western in nature, but even with specialization, the broad base which the Indian education system provides is the advantage. Now, you look at people in the West, whether it is America or Europe, talking about the foundational learning is very strong in India, at least used to be very strong in India, where children learn math, science, social, civics, chemistry, all parts and everything, and then they are able to kind of go into the top of the pyramid to choose their specialization. So that means Indian education has always been all about interfaith functional or inter subject or whatever you want to use it.
Interdisciplinary.
Yeah, interdisciplinary. That's the word, interdisciplinary. So that's the second thing. Now, the third thing which I really, really appreciate and admire in Indian education system is it is not about I am giving you an answer because you have a question. Indian education always believes in allowing the learner to ask questions. They don't serve ready-made answers. They provide you the impetus to go further, which is what is taken by different other institutions and educational institutions across the country and across the globe, where they're trying to say, don't provide ready-made answers, but allow the learner to seek more answers. Spiritual education or scientific education is all about not stopping because you got an answer. Is about starting from there, that now that we have this answer, where are we going ahead? What can we go further? So these are the three things which I really, really appreciate in Indian education system. And moving into things which are not so good, can improve. There are a lot of things, to be very frank, because at the end of the day, the very fact that our education system allows us to explore further gives me an answer that not one thing, but there are many things which needs to be fixed. But since you told me to talk about three things, let me pick up three things which are immediately required for the current generation, for the youth, and for the future, at least for the next 10, 20 years. So I'm going to restrict the span to next 2 decades. Number one, we need to understand and we need to realize it faster that education is not about degrees, is not about qualification. We need to understand this because today what is happening is people are so busy acquiring, accumulating degrees at any cost. Indian education was always about values, was always about becoming a better human being. And today we need to understand that degrees are not at the cost of values. The youth of today should understand that if I have values, I can still be a good human being. Maybe I cannot be an MBA or a PhD, but I'll still be a good human being, which is fundamental for our existence. So it's not about qualifications, it's about value system. And that needs to be emphasized. And we need to go back to schools. We need to go back to our classrooms to tell children that it's okay to win, but to win slow. But it's not okay to win fast by compromising on values. So that's the first thing. The second thing which I really want to talk about in this context of what is lacking in the education system or the current education scenario is balance. See, you see people who are always at the verge, at the periphery, where somebody is a technological wizard or an artist, or yes, specialization or speciality is very important. But at the end of the day, the balance also is very important. We need, and people may not take it nicely when I say this, we need jack of all trades, because the country like India, you can't have entrepreneurs, technopreneurs, or artists or sports persons from everyone. 133 crore population, we can't have everybody to become specialists, but we need people to be jack of all trades. When I say jack of all trades, I'm not demeaning anybody's potential. I'm only trying to say that the balance in your curriculum is very important. Today, sadly, education system is trying to pick up those achievers, those you can say in Malcolm Gladwell's language, outliers, and they want to respect, they want to recognize, and they want to reward only the outliers. That's not the way it is. You need to ensure that the Indian demography needs proper attention and care for everyone. So the balance is missing. The third and the most important thing in this current scenario is all about understanding what we need to do to stop the brain drain, providing opportunities. See, everybody is talking about the larger picture. What is the larger picture? If you are born in India, I'm not against people going to abroad or settling down or studying. No. What I am trying to tell you is, what is this education for? Towards what? It is not about me getting a good job, a 5 figure or a 6 figure salary, a great lifestyle. That's there. I'm not saying that. That is important. But there are certain things which you need to find before it is too late. And one of that is purpose. What is the purpose of my education? Today, our education system fails to give the purpose to children. I'm not blaming the students here, but I'm blaming the teachers. I'm blaming the system. The system is not about, okay, get into an Ivy League institution, clear the GMAT or the GRE, get on site, go into another job, and then settle down. No, that's not the thing. Look at the larger purpose. Suppose I'm studying, say, MBA. Why am I doing MBA? Okay, I want to make money. Okay, after that, what? I want to have a multiple locations, good houses and bungalows. Okay, fine. After that, what? I want to have a private jet. Great, fair enough. After that, what? There should be a point where you say, I have everything what I want, and now what?
Mm.
People are not going there. People are not going to get into that point to answer that question, because they say, no, this is what I want. That will not give you motivation, my friend. Motivation comes when you stand or align yourself for a larger purpose, and that purpose actually guides you. Today, if I want to take care of my parents, I will do whatever it takes to take care of my parents. It's not that my mother wants a sari, so I'm getting her. My dad wants a Apple Watch, I'm getting him. And after this, my job is over, right? So the purpose here is, as a son, I need to take care of my parents. Whatever maybe the way I follow, without compromising on my values, are all part of the journey. So this is exactly what I want to say about the positives of the education and the issues which we need to address in education.
I totally agree with you on the point where the in India you get a holistic understanding of subjects like in various fields, and also the value part that you mentioned was very core to our system initially. Nowadays it is drifting away slightly, but that is why I think like leaders like Satya Nadella or Sundar Pichai, Indra Nuri, we have Indians at these top positions because of such kind of systems. uh, Also, speaking about you also said that we need to have different fields as an improvement, not only the top performing fields or uh, the top students. So the new education system that has been introduced gives an impetus to, from what I understand from your speeches that I've heard, is that new education policy is a framework which provides more resources, electives, and evaluation metrics, other evaluation metrics. But it depends ultimately on the institution or the body which implements that framework, how they make that transition.
Yeah.
So it is completely dependent on that body.
Yes.
So what? So we don't want to talk about the new education system because there are a lot of videos out there, but we want you to share what are your thoughts regarding what are those tips that would make this transition very easy for all the institutions.
See, I think I'll only stick to one point, and as you rightly pointed out, it's all about implementation, right? The policy is very, very well drafted, and there are a lot of things which can bring path breaking changes in education sector. So I don't want to get into the details of it, but if you look at India in the last, say, 30, 40, 50 years after independence, now we are at 74th year, but then if you look at the last 50 years per se as one block, the the track record of India's implementation, not just education, but when it comes to anything else, has not been that very promising. We are not great at execution, right? I mean, you all remember those videos from China when the Beijing Olympics was inaugurated, where they said that the best executors in the world are Chinese. When it comes to time, when it comes to resources, when it comes to cost effectiveness, they know how to cut things and put it in the perfect place. Now, what I am trying to tell you here is implementation has not always been our strong suit, but that is what we need to work. See, it's like this: you go to a doctor, The doctor will ask you 101 questions before actually prescribing you or even putting you on a treatment. Why? The doctor is trying to rule out all issues which are not your problem. And once he understands or she understands what exactly is the issue, then the doctor will start proceeding with the treatment and then the prescription. Similarly, for 50 long years, we have understood what is our issue and what is not our issue. Our issue is not about thought process. Our issue is not about bringing the best practices from the world and embracing them. No, our issue is execution, implementation. When we have understood that, I think 2020 and forward, we should spend more time and more resources on implementation, on execution. If we can do that, as I said in one of my earlier webinars on the national education policy, even if we achieve 50% success of the current policy, it's a great gift to the future generation. So we need to focus on implementation and execution and nothing else. Ideas are amazing, but you need implementation.
So just so that I clearly understand what you said is, you stick to the rules, but try to follow it and not drift apart. Try to just follow what is given. And if we are like at least 50% able to execute those guidelines, we'll do great. Is that what you're
Absolutely. I
trying
mean,
to
it's not about sticking to the rules all the time, but what is about it is understand the essence of the idea and then go about implementing it so that you have the essence achieved. So it's like this, right? Now, when I'm playing a cricket match, I know my target. My target is set 283 to win in for 50 overs. Now, I'm not going to sit and say, I'm going to play a square cut, I'm going to play a straight drive, and then say, this ball, this delivery, I'm going to hit here. That is impossible. But I know my target 283 runs is what I need to get to win the match. And now focus on implementing whatever strategies you know in achieving that. That's what I mean.
Yeah. So Chandra, for execution, one important aspect will be e-learning, and that has been given a great impetus due to COVID. Like it has had many negative effects, but one great impact it has had is e-learning and acceptance of that among not just parents but teachers and educational systems as well. So
Yes.
how has been your experience regarding this transition?
Oh, it's been very eye-opening, I can say, because I'll just go back in memory. March 16th is when we got the official order from the government here saying that you've got to close the schools for next 15 days, right? So the end of
Yeah.
March, you can't open the schools, and that was the peak time for exams, peak time for admissions, and peak time for results, right? So we were actually gearing up for the whole year for the final countdown, and then there is no countdown, right? And then what happened was that was not just 15 days, it got extended and extended, and even today on
Yeah.
August, I think 17th, we are still having no clue about when the schools are going to open, at least in the part of the country where I come from, Karnataka or Hyderabad, Telangana, none of these places. And I'm sure the same situation is in Maharashtra as well. Now, over this last 4 months or 4 to 5 months, we have seen a lot of changes at multiple levels. Level one is that of acceptance.
Yeah.
Level two is that of attitude. And level three is that of action, right? So first one is acceptance. Teachers, especially in our schools, are not very receptive to change
Yeah.
because everybody wants to say we have been doing it, why do we have to change now, right? Now this was a shocker. This was like a blow in their face that there is no school, you have to conduct your exams, and you don't know whether you will conduct the exams because what is going to be happening with the results, we don't know, all of that. But that kind of a level which actually tried to create that kind of disturbance actually brought in an acceptance factor
Yeah.
within very short time compared to others, I must say, in education space, where if you see from the 1st of April, that is in the fortnight's time, almost 20% of the private schools in the country, I'm saying 20% of the private schools in the country were teaching or getting online with their children.
Yeah.
At least in the metros and the tier 2 or tier 1 cities, teachers and children were connecting on Google Classroom or Zoom or Skype or Microsoft Teams, whatever you call it. So awareness and acceptance happened. The second was attitude. Now I'll give you a story. One of my teacher, I don't want to give her name out, but one of her teachers, she was so scared of opening a Gmail account. She never had an email. She was working in my school for last 9 years. She did not open a Gmail account. She said, I don't need Gmail. I don't want an email account. I am happy with whatever it is. My students connect with me or not. WhatsApp with great difficulty, she went on to. Today, as I'm talking to you, she's on Google Classroom.
Yeah.
She has a classroom of her own on the internet. Why? The attitude shift. She understood that she wants to give the best education to her children. Her knowledge has to be transported or changed from one person to another, and that has made her to get out of her comfort zone. And that's what I say, the attitude shift. And the third one is at the action level. They are not stopping at just connecting to people online. They are taking the action beyond. I mean, people are integrating tools. People are trying to have collaborative meetings. In fact, the other day, which was, I think, one day prior to Independence Day on the 14th of August, the school's investiture ceremony was held online. I mean, you imagine an investiture ceremony with all the march past and drums and band. And today it is happening online where parents are actually pinning the badges, putting the sachets, and people are watching it on the camera across industry, across the state, across the country, and people are celebrating. So action also has changed. So at three levels: awareness level, attitude level, or acceptance level, attitude level, and action level, things have changed.
So then, once we are done with COVID, say couple of years down the line, whenever the total impact is over, can we look at a hybrid system of education where physical classroom is not the only thing that we have? Right
Oh
now,
yeah,
it is the need of the hour, but down the line, will educational institutes move online by choice rather than by force?
absolutely. I mean, to be very frank with you, it's actually the other way what you said. The schools, if they have to be relevant in the next decade, they have to go into the hybrid model by force,
Yeah.
because that's the demand. There is a saying which is very, very famous. Nobody, no force on earth can stop the idea whose time has come, right? Online learning, hybrid education, e-learning. These are ideas which we have been toying with for quite some time. And today the time has come. COVID has only accelerated the
Yeah.
requirement of it. And today, I don't think any institution, be it school, college, or university, can say, oh, we don't want to get into online teaching or learning. That's not going to happen. So what I see, if you ask me the question, what is the future? I see the future is blended learning. The future is hybrid schools. The future is where flipped classrooms will happen.
Yeah.
Students are sharing their learning and teachers are only facilitating them in terms of conceptual clarity. These are the things which will go and be more often in the future.
Right. So one question as an extension of that, and it will be to Chandra, the speaker. We
Okay.
know that it is already tough for teachers to keep the attention of students in a physical setting, and it is even further tougher to do that in an online environment. So probably many of the teachers are already facing that this issue that the students are less attentive in online situation. So what would be your advice to the teachers who would be watching this video, that how should they go about it?
Uh, well, I think it's like this, right? You need to change yourself to the format of the game. Okay, so you definitely cannot play a 2020 match like how you play a test match in cricket, if I have to
Yeah.
borrow a metaphor from there. So you definitely cannot run a 100-meter dash the way you would run a marathon. So it's not possible. So you need to change yourself to suit the requirement of the current scenario and the game.
Mhm.
So when it comes to playing the online game for the teacher, I think there are a couple of things which the teachers will have to first of all unlearn.
Yeah.
Unlearning is the first thing. then comes relearning, and then comes learning, continuing learning. So first start with unlearning. The first thing which the teachers have to unlearn is, gone are the days where you are in control of the classroom. You're not in control of the classroom. I mean, tell me one thing. Let's take an example. Now, a student is logging into your class. Who is going to stop the student from logging out?
Yeah.
Okay, he can shut off his video, he can shut off his mic, or she can just close and then walk out. What will you do? So you are not in control at all. You're nobody to control anybody here. Of the classroom is gone. The second thing which the teachers have to accept, a harsh truth, is talking and expecting people to listen to you all the time is not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to be interaction. When I say interaction, it's going to be collaborative communication. So I ask you some question, I share my opinion, I ask the class to speak, I ask different people to give their inputs, and then together we construct a particular takeaway out of the session. That's the way, not the chalk and talk method where I go on the green board and I write everything and say, okay, you take it down. Today, people will just take a screenshot.
Yeah.
I mean, you will spend 20 minutes to fill up your whiteboard or green board. Child will take less than 2 seconds to say, ma'am, over, I've copied it. So
Yeah.
what are you going to do? Right. So these are the two shifts which the teachers have to bring in immediately. Now, coming to relearning, what are the things they need to relearn? There is a lot of things. The first thing is attention span, as you rightly said. The children, whether it is an adult also online, my attention span is very limited. Research says an adult can listen to anything not more than 10 minutes. And a child, lower the age of the child, the attention span drops. It
Yeah.
can come to as low as 30 seconds in a toddler. 30 seconds. Now, when you are operating in this bracket of 10 minutes to 30 seconds, how are you going to make sense? So you have to relearn. How? You need to bring in different attractions using technology to capture the attention. So maybe a video, maybe a audio file, maybe a quiz, maybe some kind of a debate, maybe more people talking and contributing, so that people are listening to the distraction, but at the same time it is not distracting their thought process. Yeah, see, now three of us are talking, but we are all talking of one concept, one point of view, and that's why it's not distracting to our audience, but it is three of us. So somebody may like Vivaswan's point of view, somebody may like my point of view, somebody may like Atharva's opinion, but at the end of the day they're all listening to the same concept.
Yeah. So earlier,
Just before moving forward, before I forget, I just want to make 2 points. The first, where you mentioned about the screenshots. If any of the students here are listening, I would recommend you write down things. I didn't know when I was in school, but apparently now I took a course on Coursera about how to learn, and it was very beneficial. And one of the points brought in was, the person giving this advice was a MIT US scholar. So he told that whenever I ingest, or whenever I take any new information, I try to take it in different forms: audio, visual. I write it down so it brings muscle memory. I speak it. So when the same information is enforced in 2 or 3 different forms, it is more concrete. So that was one point. And second, regarding the what you call the online meeting. So Chandra, is it possible to have with this infrastructure uh, less students per teacher, so that we can hire more teachers? So that way we can keep a class more interactive, like we have in Zoom meetings, breakout rooms to study, to discuss some topic. And we see generally in breakout rooms there is more interaction rather than one teacher 80 students. So do you think that it is important?
So you mean to say less students and more interaction?
Less students per teacher, so
Yeah,
that
so
interaction would
absolutely. In fact, when I talk to my teachers, good that you brought that point. When I talk to my teachers, I give them this opinion. I say that Gone are the days where you have 40 children in a classroom and you have a 40-minute interactive session. Because
Yeah.
if you look at a school or college, normally it is 40 minutes per session and you call it as a 40-minute period. Period
Yeah.
1, period 2, period 3. And 40 children are the permissible limits as per the CBSE. Now, coming to your question, which is a very, very important point which you have raised, you can't handle 40 children on a classroom, on a Zoom session. You can't handle it. It is Mela. It is going to be like havoc. So now the format is already changing. And in fact, all our classrooms, wherever we have online classes today, 2020 is the format. So we have a 20-minute class and 20 children maximum in a class, and that too with two teachers. So 20
Okay.
by 20 into 2. So there are two people where one person is managing the class in terms of talking to children and giving them knowledge, but the other person is basically busy handling the technical aspects of it, sharing the screen, moving the slide, and trying to bring all the children together, muting, unmuting, all of that, right?
Right.
So 20 children in a class and 20-minute session. Why 20 minutes? Because as I said, attention span we've already spoken about, and we need to. And in fact, in technology, in classroom, the best part is you are here only to talk for the 20 minutes to share and clarify doubts and concerns. Reading and learning for children who are above grade 7, they do it on their own. You don't have
Yeah.
to tell them open page number 3, page number 4. They will do it on their own. For smaller children, then the tips and techniques are different, where you will show them a video and ask them to talk about what they learned, how to memorize it, all of that. So you need to use different tools for different age groups. But as you rightly said, I agree with you that you can't handle more than 20 children comfortably on an online classroom.
Right. So in this transition that we are going to go through, like marks is of course one parameter that is there. But other than that, how should the teachers or how should an organization judge itself that how well it is doing or how much effective the teaching system of that specific organization is or how effective are the teachers? So how should we, like not we as such, but how should an organization actually gauge how well it is doing?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of things which we need to understand when we have to assess the students and assess the teacher. Okay, when you say students, you're right, you have to assess the student on their marks, but that's not the only thing. There are a host of other things, and I'm sure lot of schools, in fact, the CBSE board or the Cambridge board or the ICSE board have brought in different ways to analyze and assess the students' learning, be it project work or be it submission of thesis or be it group study or be it paraphrasing whatever they have learned and working on new things. So there are a lot of methodologies which are available to assess the children. Keeping that aside, when it comes to assessing the teacher, it's like what we do in communication. I know what I have given, but I don't know what you have taken. So we
Yeah.
need to kind of assess what the teacher has given. I think feedback plays a very important role. So the second teacher who's there in the class is there for a particular reason, where he or she will come back towards the last 3 minutes to 5 minutes and ask some questions specifically about what was taught in the class before. So if the children are able to reciprocate, that means at least the information what was shared has actually reached them. The rest is all about memorizing and applying it. That's a different plane altogether, from knowledge to understanding to application to synthesis. All that will happen. But the first thing is receiving information. So, as you rightly said, assessing what the teacher has given comes with feedback. So, the first and the easiest tool which we all have to follow is take feedback instantly from children or learners so that you know that both of them are on the same page.
Right. So thanks, Chandra. Regarding the education system in India, these were the questions we had.